And so, what are your thoughts? And did that activity make you think differently? What questions do you have? Certainly. And were you in agreement or were you in disagreement? What kinds of things did you talk about?
For the most part, my group seemed to be in agreement on a lot of them. So it was like, I thought it was kind of cool that we were all like thinking along the same lines for most of them.
Okay, good.
We did discuss a few of them that we like had like multiple page numbers for. But
Okay.
my like question is the picture one. I didn't get what I was supposed to connect to that. I didn't know what angle I was supposed to be looking at that from. Like, am I supposed to be looking at it as like the character that it is? Because like I know which character that is, or was I
Right.
supposed to be looking at like just the image? I guess that one just confused me.
Probably thinking more along the lines of the character and what that character does over the course of that film. And I recognize that not everybody's going to know it and be on board with it and be familiar with it. Um, but at the same time, not everybody is familiar with some of the other texts as well. The danger of ultimately using an image rather than really anything else. And I suppose ultimately for the page that it's associated with, you might also kind of be thinking of maybe not. Yeah, I was thinking maybe you could utilize WandaVision, but probably not. How many of you are watching that? Is anybody watching WandaVision?
I am.
It's
I
pretty
am.
good. So yeah, other thoughts, comments, questions? Were there any that you could not figure out?
For our group, we agreed on a few of them, but like a lot of them we discussed because we each picked out like a different line on the page, or like a different section on each page that like we thought it connected to. So I feel like a lot of ours we were discussing, and it was kind of cool to like see other people's point of view, but I also it was kind of confusing to like be able to connect it with a page because a lot of them were different.
Sure. Yeah. And it's funny. The very first time that I did this, I had something very specific in mind, but then as I started listening to the students and what they were seeing and saying, I totally get how you can apply a lot of these to other moments, to other points, and so on and so forth. And I think that's valuable and important. Um, Questions? Are there any that you like need to know?
The quote from Beowulf. So I picked out a part in there that talked about changing his own fate as that's where I picked out where Felix is kind of changing his own fate. But other than that, I don't really see Felix as a brave king who ever lived to be rich or honored. So I
Right.
struggled with that one.
So I gave that snippet to focus on the changing of the fate. That was the intent. What page did you pick for that one?
I said possibly 41 because he like develops, okay, these are the two goals that I'm going to move on from here um and pursue, but it was not a strong connection.
Okay. Where else did we have Beowulf?
I said slide 7 because Felix wanted like a reversal of fate.
So what page would you put that?
Oh, sorry. I meant to say page 39 because Felix wanted a reversal of fate.
Okay. Yeah, and that's ultimately what I've got in my margin note. Girls left for dead in glass coffins or 4-poster beds, then brought miraculously back to life by the touch of love. That was what he longed for, a reversal of fate. So that was the intent. But, it's not, this is a big reason I don't do a lot of create my own multiple choice tests. What else? Other questions?
What is slide 6? It was the choices one. What does that connect to?
Oh, okay. So my thinking was page 11. And how many of you identified page 11 for choices? Anybody choose that one? No? Okay. And let's see here. Probably the second paragraph. His only excuse was that he'd been distracted by grief at that time. He'd recently lost his only child, and in such a terrible way. And one of the things that choices makes me think of is that if, the constant if. And so we've got the repetition, what is that? The anaphora of if only he had, if only he hadn't, if only he'd been aware. No, too painful still. Don't think about it, he tells himself while doing up the buttons of his shirt. Hold it far back, pretend it was only a movie. Even if that not to be thought about event hadn't occurred, he'd most likely still have been ambushed. And so it's that thinking of the if. But it certainly could easily be something else too. So. Other questions?
Okay, this is weird, but do we actually know anything about Felix himself, because he's actually like playing a character for like the whole book?
So what are you really asking?
I don't know. Like how much do we know about Felix before he was Prospero, like before he took on the role of like Prospero and before the play? Do we know anything about him, and if he's like, changed from all of this, or if this is what he was like? I don't know.
Is he dynamic?
I mean, yeah, because he comes to terms with reality, I guess.
Okay. So I think he's learning. I think he's learning about himself as he's moving along. It's very subtle, certainly, but there are kind of discoveries that are being made. In terms of like who he was prior to this, I kind of get the sense based on kind of the way that people have described him, that maybe certainly someone with an elevated sense of self, who in suffering in the way that he is, and frequently in making himself suffer. A lot of the suffering that he goes through, he is it's self-imposed. Like the scene where he takes the bath and that his towel is threadbare, and he could buy himself a new one, but wouldn't go along with the image that he's trying to create of himself. And so I think it's all very much a matter of coming to terms with who he is now. And I think we're seeing kind of a slow evolution in terms of, who he is now, I guess. But it's not, some dramatic kind of transformation that he undergoes. And he may not be the egomaniac that we might assume him to be because of, maybe the explosiveness that he conveys when he's fired by Tony. I think he is someone who like many of us, is on a search for who he is. And I think that's a big part of the island that he talks about, or the prisons. So if we take a look at 115, and then we'll shift to, unless there are protests, to annotated bibliographies, because I want to give you some time with that. So page 115, and he's talking about the Tempest, and this would go along with No Man is an Island. The whole play takes place on an island, says Felix, standing beside his whiteboard. But what kind of island is it? Is it magic in itself? We never really know. It's different for each one of the people who's landed on it. Some of them fear it, some of them want to control it, some of them just want to get away from it. And here, that's it. That is really any place that we find ourselves. That could be this class. That could be Penn High School. It could be the college or university that you plan on attending. It could be your home. It could be this place that we find ourselves on. The whole play takes place on an island, but what kind of island is it? The whole play takes place on Earth. But what kind of Earth is it? Or planet? I think in a previous agenda, and I can't remember for sure if I offered this to you or not, but the Tempest becomes, in the 1950s, maybe 1960s. I think it's the 50s though. A science fiction movie called Forbidden Planet, where everything takes place on a planet. And so, wherever it is that we find ourselves, it's different for each one of us. We're bringing different things with us. And so some of us are afraid of it. Some of us want to control it, this space in which we find ourselves. And some of us just want to get away from it. The first person to set foot on it is Caliban's mother, Sycorax, said to be a loathsome witch. She dies before the play begins, but not before Caliban is born on the island. And so we've got, a sense of tragedy. He grows up on it, and he's the only one who really likes it. When Caliban is a young boy, Prospero is kind to him, but then sex gets in the way, and Caliban loses it and gets locked up. After that, he's afraid of Prospero and his imps and goblins because they torment him. And so some of us, when we arrive here in this place, we are happy, but something gets in the way and we are tormented. But he's never afraid of the island. In turn, it sometimes plays sweet music to him. And so that's how, many of us may relate to certain moments, certain places in which we find ourselves. And then he describes Ariel. What does he think about the island? We don't know. He's in charge of creating illusions on it, but he's only doing what he's told. And so there are illusions that we encounter in this place, whatever this place is. It might be, an island, or metaphorically, the island represents wherever it is that we are. And then he goes on and describes, all the other characters and what the island comes to represent for them. And how many of these things are real? How many of them do we create for ourselves? Is the island the world is what we might want to be asking. And so, in terms of the world, our role, like Felix's role, is trying to figure out our place in it. And even as an old man, for Felix, he's somebody who's still kind of trying to figure out what his place is in the world after a significant disruption. And so I think that's kind of his complexity. I don't know if he's dynamic, but he is round. He's not flat. Does that answer your question? Sort of?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So, certainly be thinking about this island. Does anybody have like one more question that you want to ask about this activity of working through the slideshow or the virtual gallery walk? No, we're okay? Okay. So let me kind of share a couple of cautionary tales with you. And so I need to share my screen. And I thought about doing this in a number of different ways, but I think this will probably be the best way. And I need, what do I need? I need a search bar. So I'm going to go with a new tab. So thinking about, thinking about Roman numeral 2, letter A. That's the one that deals with literary merit, this question of literary merit. And so I'm going to look for College Board literary merit. You see how it auto-filled, because I've looked for this a lot. And right away, I've got a featured snippet on Google. I don't know that this will pop up for any of you, but this is one that is usable. And so I'm going to click that. Actually, I should have right-clicked that. So let me go back. I'm going to right-click that. Nope. Boo. There we go. Now I've right-clicked it. And then I want this one too, because there's a trick to this one. So we'll start with this. College Board's publication. And you want to be careful with this one for a number of reasons. So this one, this has a lot of little subtle details. So we can tell in the URL, which you do not necessarily see, but certainly from the title page, we've got College Board on the main page. So this is a publication from College Board indicating that they have, what's the word I want? And in the middle of the night, the word came to me and I was like, I need to remember that for the morning. So it's an indication that College Board has endorsed the idea that is published by them. If College Board publishes it, that means they've endorsed what's coming from their publishing company. So we've got this long title, and this is the title of the container. College Board is not the author, and so you need to be mindful of that. We have a year, but this title will need to look like this because it's the container. And oh, I hope that's going to work for me. Okay. Although, ultimately, I want to make sure that my punctuation is correct. After the container, name of site, version number, data source correct now, no. Yes. Okay, so it looks like a period. Which screen do I really want to be sharing with you? That one. Okay, so this is some of the information that I have. It's a long title. Notice that I'm using a colon to indicate that there are essentially two parts to this title. Now, if I'm using this particular source, and for how many of you does this source look familiar? Okay, handful of us. I'm probably using this Standing on Merit, the Role of Quality and Choice in Student Reading by Barry Gilmore. And so I want and again, long title. Oh, my memory is terrible. Standing, goodness, standing. Role of quality and choice in student. I think that's a period. I got to double check on that. Page on a website, period. Oh, no, actually that should be a comma, apparently, after the other. Okay. So that's the first three elements that I'm going to need. And the reason that I'm kind of sharing this with you is far too often I've got students who are really just not paying attention to little teeny tiny details. Pay attention to the things that you have, and specifically to what it is that you're using. You're probably not going to be using anything more than Barry Gilmore's article in using the whole curriculum module. And then from here, there are, there's more to it than just this. But I'm not going to do your work for you. Okay. The next that I want to share with you, this is another one another source that may have appeared that you may be using. And I want you to be conscious and kind of paying attention to this as well, to very subtle little details. And ultimately, I do need to create the hanging indent here. Hanging indent, I will tell you, and I'll kind of talk you through it. I'm going to hit enter right now. And I'm going to hit enter. No, I need to not do that. Hold on. Hold that thought. I need to make everything double spaced first. Okay. Now I'm going to hit enter. Nope. I'm going to hit tab because I've already hit enter. And then here, I think I hit enter again. Yep. Yay. So you just got to play around with your enter key and your tab key to get that hanging indent that looks roughly like this. And again, there's more details than just this one, than just this particular entry. And then to get it back to normal, you've got to, again, play around with your backspace and your enter keys and so on and so forth. So this next one that we're going to look at, this was, my third hit when the featured snippet is included. So I want to take a look at this similar literary quality, demystifying the AP English, whatever it is. And ultimately, I'm going to learn here that that is not the title. It's something else. Well, actually, I guess it is the title. Never mind. Forget I said that. We've got an interesting author situation here. S.J. Miller is transgender and does not capitalize their initials. S.J. Miller goes by S.J. In terms of publications. I don't know what they go by traditionally, but you want to be respectful of the author and not, force something that is not there. So in terms of, and this is useful because we're dealing with two authors here. And you can't even see it. Now you can. So we've got S.J. Miller and Josh M. Slifkin. S.J. Miller actually has been a reader at the AP exam, and students have cited them in the past. And I've always wanted to go up to them and say, my students frequently will cite you, but I've not been brave enough to do that. So they're kind of like a mini celebrity to me. But anyway. So we've got Miller, S.J., and let me make sure I'm doing this right. So far I've got that. Miller, comma, S.J., comma, and. And so here are two authors. Here's an example of two authors that I'm looking at on Purdue OWL. And they're presented in this order, and so I want to present them in this order. And Josh M. Slifkin. And I get their title. Similar literary quality. But I need to use a quote within a quote. So I need to use the singular quote within the double quotes. And this is how it's presented. Demystifying the AP English Literature and Composition open question. Demystifying. I'm spelling that so wrong. Wise is what I need. Mystifying. Okay. AP And this source is Allen Review, but it's not clear, kind of just eyeballing the page, that is the case. Certainly not at the top, nor at the bottom. And so I need to do a little bit of detective work. And what I want to do then is play around with my URL. So I'm going to come back to the main document that I'm working with and I'm sharing with you. I've got this URL. And so what I need to experiment with a little bit is I want to take the miller.html out and leave it at the volume number and the number. So you can see that. And so when I remove that, I come up with the complete issue from 2010. And so looking back at the URL, this V37N2, you'll see near the top of the page under the table of contents that it is volume 37, number 2. That's what the V37N2 stands for. And so if I go to the complete issue, I'm working with Allen, whatever that is, although I know what it is. I can see here now, over to the right, that I'm working with the Allen Review. And so that's what the Allen is in the URL. Okay? This is the Allen Review. Published by Virginia Tech. That's vt.edu. So somehow Virginia Tech is going to need to appear in there, and I'm going to need to convey that. And there are some other little minor issues. So for instance, I see here in terms of my publication date that it was the winter of 2010 when it was published. And so I need to make sure that I include winter 2010 rather than just 2010. And depending on kind of which website I'm looking at, right now I'm looking at the HTML website. So I need to include the accessed page. If I'm working with the PDF version, then under those circumstances, I don't need to give an access date. And I'll show you that here on Purdue OWL. MLA, works cited, other common sources. PDF. You'll see here a PDF just ends with the PDF. It does not demand an accessed date. But I'm certainly not going to reject it if you give me an access date with the PDF. PDF is one of the rare occasions that you're not going to give me an access date for something that you find online. So that's a lot of just like little things that you want to make sure that you're kind of paying attention to. The details matter. Do you have any questions for me? And again, I'm not going to do the rest of that. But go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the Virginia text source is the one I'm also using. And how come for Josh Slifkin you didn't put the last name then first name?
Because that's not how it works.
Okay.
So when you've got two authors, the first author is last name first, comma, first name last, comma, and then I think the issue is that it becomes far too many commas
Okay.
within that list. And so the second author is always identified by their first name, and however they're published. And so you want to respect again that when they're published, Josh M. Slifkin wants to go by Josh M. Slifkin. So some of you may, as undergrads, become published, and then if you get married and take on your spouse's last name, or do a hyphenate, you've been published already under your pre-marriage name. And so consequently, from then on, you may want to only publish under that before you were married name. And some folks, request the change. And so you want to be respectful of, the way that they've asked for the name to be presented. And then two or more names, under those circumstances, then you only do the first author that's listed, comma, et al. And so, anybody else who played a part in the writing of that does not get listed under MLA format. And one of the places that you can find that within Purdue OWL is, let's see here. And it's unfortunate that it's under books, because most of us are not going to be utilizing books very frequently. But we've got book with one author, and then ultimately it's any source with only one author. Book with more than one author, when a book has two authors, order the authors in the same way they're presented in the book. Some people make the mistake of putting them alphabetically. Don't do that. When you publish, you've made an agreement that it's going to be published in this order. And so the first person is the one who's going to get primary credit under those circumstances. So start by listing the first name that appears on the book in last name, first name format. Subsequent author names appear in normal order. And then if there are three or more authors, list only the first author followed by the phrase et al., Latin for and others. And you don't italicize that et al. There is a period after all in et al. There's never a period after the et in et al. And then, we've got two or more books by the same author and how to go about dealing with that. That may apply to some of you as we move further in. So be conscious of that. Purdue OWL is your friend. Because once you've mastered kind of how to negotiate the MLA guide, then you know how to utilize the others as well. That's another reason that you want to avoid the online generators. Other questions? So we have a little less than 10 minutes left, and I'm going to invite you to go ahead and spend the rest of the time on your annotated bibliographies. Please, if you're having trouble finding something, let me know. Oh, there was actually one other thing thinking about the agenda. So I've got this, how to go about citing a syllabus. And this is the result of kind of how others are treated. The other so like non-European white people, how they are represented in literature. And so this course has both, let's see here. Well, it's got a book that we're going to be reading later on in the year, but it's got Othello and Wide Sargasso Sea, and frequently those two are not necessarily going to appear together. And so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to kind of grab on to this one. And so for this, it's going to take some digging, but my author, I'm going to have, I'm going to use, sorry, and you're not looking at it. So my author, you're going to be looking at the faculty member. That's the professor. That's the person who's created this course. And the title of the course then is going to be Imagining the Other in European Literature. That'll be in quotation marks. And then probably for the container, I'm going to use, I think, syllabus. I think that makes the most sense. And then from there, like, you know, what is it that I'm looking at here? So I will need to use the URL, but I need to figure out what dis is. And so by looking up kind of dis, it appears to be a study abroad school in Scandinavia. And if I go back to the previous page, this is very specifically part of their Swedish school. So I've got my semester and kind of where, and I don't know that I need the where, but yeah, maybe I do. Maybe ultimately I do. So this is for, you know, American students studying in Scandinavian countries, and so that's what dis is. And I'm actually going to search for dis as Google. That's interesting. It's the stock for Walt Disney. Disabroad.org, study abroad in Scandinavia. So it's an undergraduate program. How long do I want to be there? Semester or the summer? So it's an opportunity to study abroad. So you just kind of, you know, do some investigative work. Treat yourself as a detective and do some digging. All right. Other questions? Problems that you're running into? Feel free to make an appointment, send me an email. There's only about 5 minutes left, but go ahead and be working on whatever it is that you need to be working on right now for us. And I'll be sure to give you some dedicated time Wednesday on the day it's due. We'll start with that.
Mr. Coffee, I had two small questions about the College Board source. I was following the Purdue OWL format, and it says to list if it's an addition. So if it's the 2010 module, is that an addition, or do I leave that out?
Yeah, you probably add it in like that. Or, you know, alternatively, treat that 2010 as its original publication date.
Okay.
Yeah, because you wouldn't, I don't think you would, you would identify it as 2010 ED.
Okay.
Okay.
So we just leave that out.
Right.
And then the publisher, they go by a lot of different things. Is it the College Board or College Board? Because I know the top is also College Board Inspiring Minds.
Right. Let's go with since it's the College Board, which immediately follows the copyright date, I'd go with the College Board.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I also had a question.
Okay.
For the Allen Review one, 2010 would be the publication date. So winter would that be like the edition?
No, it would be
Or
winter 2010. So you would,
So we'll just put that.
right, correct.
Okay.
So for, you know, the publication date, if it's not, if you don't actually have a day or a month, and the season is offered, you want to make sure that you offer the season.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question about, I did a different Allen review, but it was also on Virginia Tech, and it gave a DOI instead of like the URL. And so Purdue Owl said to use the DOI instead of the URL. Is that okay? Like I put DOI and then colon and put it there.
Right. It is, as long as it appears in the same way that you feel like it should appear as. The DOI is perfectly acceptable.
Okay.
Okay. All right, that's 10:11. Do reach out to me if you need to. Set up an appointment if you need to. I'm kind of, yeah, my scheduling in terms of the appointments for the next couple of days are a little rough, but you know, reach out if you need to. Okay, I'm here for you. Have a good Monday.
Thank you, Mr. Coffey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
So you mentioned that if it's just a syllabus, then the container is the syllabus, like literally just the word syllabus?
Well, for that particular one, it might be different. It could be like the department. It might be, yeah, a couple of different things. If you want to send me the link, go ahead and send me the link, and I'll take a look at it and see if we can figure out what it is.
Okay. I have the weird thing is all of my sources are PDF documents. So I used two syllabi, one that has the learning objectives and that one that's actually the course.
Okay.
So I didn't know whether the publisher is the university because it's literally just a syllabus and then it just starts with the professor and there's really no publisher or container. But I don't know. I can send you the link because it's.
Yeah, send them on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.